So over the last couple of months, I've gone full on nature boy. We've gone off-roading a couple times, I've spent some time in the desert, but now we're in the Canadian forest and we're going to talk about using a generator in order to power some of your items to make things a little bit more mobile. Today's video is going to be sponsored by Bluetti, and I'm going to be talking about the AC180. Now this is a generator not only to give you power, but also has multiple ways of connecting. I also want to talk about something I haven't talked about in the channel because Bluetti as a brand has done something that's pretty special to my heart, but well, we'll get there. Now, the AC180 obviously is a battery pack, and they're not the most intricate things in the world, but it does have a lot going for it. It does have 1152 watt hours, which actually lasts a pretty long time, even when you're connecting lights to it. We'll see in a live example how long I'll be able to get by using some filmmaker math, but on the AC180, you're gonna get 4 regular outputs. So if you are somebody that connects things like lights, even if I'm using my FC500 or a light that might have a ballast for a VMAP battery, you're gonna be able to connect up to 4 of these guys at the same time. You're also gonna get 4 USB-A and 1 USB-C port as well, and a wireless charging pad on top. You're also going to get things like your cigarette lighter charger, so if you do have those car chargers and your car dies, you're still able to use one of those guys. And you're going to get a screen that lights up that lets you know how much power you have left in the AC180, but also how much you're inputting and outputting in terms of your power. That's going to be a little bit important later. Now, in terms of the actual wattage, how much power you can draw at the same time, you could take up to 1800 watts, which basically means all the power that you're drawing from all your devices should total up to about 1800 watts. For example, if I'm using my FC500, it's going to take 500 watts if I'm going at full power. Now, if you are in a pinch, you can peak at 2700 watts, but I wouldn't recommend that, as 2700 is more than the watt hours that are allotted on the AC180, which does mean that you're going to get less than that watt hour in terms of actually plugging everything in. To put that in perspective, that's about 62 times on a phone, 13 to 15 times on your laptop, 50 minutes on an electronic oven, 30 minutes on a portable AC, 93 times on a 10 watt hour bulb, 7 hours on a refrigerator, 56 minutes on a coffee maker, and 15 hours on a car fridge. Now, I am going to go into a setup here and I might run out of power in this video. However, if I go back home for 45 minutes, I could charge between 0 and 80%, making this one of the faster of the charging of the generators. Now, I'm going to take a second in this video to say, I get it. Sponsored videos promoting products, especially this time of the year, can get a little bit daunting. But one of the things I want to point out with Bluetti, and the reason why I was super excited to do this video, is not only that I get a generator that I can power my stuff with, is a program called Light in African Family. Now, it's no surprise I come from West Africa, Ghana specifically, and sometimes when it's raining season, you'd experience something called light off, which literally means the power would go out, and anywhere between a couple of hours or a couple of days, you wouldn't have any power in your house. And that's a situation that might happen when you're in the city. Now, if you're in some of the rural off-grid areas, oftentimes there isn't a lot of power at all. What Bluetti's actually managed to do is every time you buy one of their products, they will donate another mini generator to an off-grid African family anywhere in Africa. It's not just specifically to Ghana. Now, usually with humanitarian efforts and brand deals, sometimes you're a little bit skeptical, but one of the things that really intrigued me was the fact that if you go on the Bluetti app, you're able to check out all of the countries they've donated units to and how much they've actually done. On top of that, there's also a tab where you can see news articles, videos, and actually see the brand that says they're going to do the thing actually helping communities, which you don't see too often in terms of different brands that make technology, actually giving it back to the people that need it the most. Again, take it or leave it. At the end of the day, if you want to pick up one of these guys, you definitely can. But for me personally, not only do I have something that can power my stuff for my filmmaking career, but also it's something that gives to a cause which I actually hold near and dear to my heart. Now, in a situation like a gym, this is where the AC180 can shine. Oftentimes, you have to have a setup where you're going to have a less powerful light if you want to have a more mobile or even a handheld setup. But having a generator that can move with you, also that has a capacity for the maximum output of your lights, is actually really nice because we can run a couple of lights inside of one of these scenarios. Now, I did work on a documentary. I was shooting a couple of scenes at this boxing gym, and the outlets aren't exactly in the most favorable places. I need to get some shots at the ring. I also wanted to get an interview as well. And what's really cool is I could just plug in my lights to the AC180, but there is something you have to keep in mind. We're gonna get into some filmmaker boy math, or filmmaker person math. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind is that the AC180 does have a maximum wattage of about 1800 watts. That's gonna be important when you want to keep in mind the lights that you're going to be using. Now, I use my FC500 and FC300 just before my car got broken into and they got stolen. And one thing you want to keep in mind is that at the maximum output is that you have a 500 and a 300 watt light. So total together, it's going to be about 800 watts. Because you top out at about 1800, that's more than fine for you to be able to plug both of them in at the same time, even when they're at their full power. Now, generally speaking, in a situation like this, you probably don't have to plug them in at full power. However, if you're trying not to overload your generator, you want to make sure the maximum that it can take. Now, one thing you also want to do is divide the actual total output by how many watt hours are left, and that's going to generally give you a rough estimate of how much time you're going to have while you're operating at that wattage. For example, if I'm going to operate at 800 watts and I have an 1152 watt hour generator like we have in this scenario, at its maximum output, you're going to get just over an hour in terms of that scenario before you have to charge it again, which is also nice because you just plug it in for 45 minutes and then you can go again at up to 80%. So this is some unnatural lighting. However, this is a really quick, easy setup to have, especially if you have some lights in your car. Right now, my key light is going to be my FC500, going at full power to the generator, as well as my hair light right behind me is the FC300. This is a 1-2 punch combo, and although 500 watts is not enough to overpower the sun, if I have a gigantic 150 softbox that could just block the sun in general, well, then I can kind of create my own and make it a little bit softer. I also have the Pixis hooked up into the generator as well. The BPU batteries that I have in the back of this guy are great, but they kind of run out really quickly, but I brought my V-mount charger, connected it right to there, and as you can see on the screen, I'm still under that 1000 watt hours in order for me to get about 60 minutes on a full charge. But what's nice about that is if I have somewhere to charge it for about 45 minutes, I could stop at a restaurant or wherever I am, I can charge this guy up in about 45 minutes to 80%, and probably a little bit more if I want to get it all the way to 100. Now, at the end of the day, this 35-pound power bank that's able to have a bunch of different things that you could plug in to make your filmmaking setup a little bit more mobile isn't necessarily going to be the cheapest thing in the world, but it's also not the most expensive. At the time of making this video, it's just under $1,000 to get the Bluetti AC180, which is super nice, especially if you're looking for a somewhat more affordable setup to have lights be able to run off of a central power source, being a generator. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to run all of your lights at 100%. We just showed an example when we used it indoors, and we didn't necessarily have to go to full power. However, if you're someone who's in a pinch, or maybe you're doing some Adventure Time content and you need another power source, or even to charge your batteries on your camera, because mine died quite a bit. This is actually the 4th time I've made this video. You actually have the ability to do that. And it's super nice, and it can fit into your trunk. That being said, a special shout out to Bluetti for sponsoring this video. One of the things that's very important to me is a brand that actually gives back into the community, as somebody that does a lot of events and workshops, most of the time for free. If you guys are looking to get a generator to power your different filmmaking tools between your lights or a battery charger, or to charge your V-mount because your camera might die on set, you can click the link down in the description down below. That being said, the YouTube algorithm probably thinks you want to watch one of these videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Bye.